Okay, it's time to talk about The Voice. Yeah, we got to do it. And if you don't like what I've got to say, just hold on for a few minutes and you can hear from Pauline Hanson. How about that? People with differing opinions thinking it's worth having a chat. Anyway, we all know the yes case has been floundering. The Albanese government's fumbled its advocacy while the no case has run a pretty effective scare campaign. And as a result, polls show a collapse in support for The Voice, with the referendum looking like a 50-50 proposition at the moment. So when the Minister for Indigenous Affairs, Linda Burney, spoke at the National Press Club today, she needed a reset. And to be fair, it was one of her better performances. She dealt reasonably well, for instance, with this last-minute push by Jeff Kennett and others to offer constitutional recognition without a voice. The point is, this idea was actually put to a referendum more than 20 years ago, and more importantly, after decades of consultation, a broad consensus of Indigenous Australians has agreed on The Voice as the most desirable and practical way to be recognised in the Constitution. This was all decided by Indigenous Australians, not the Labor Party, years ago.
The idea of constitutional recognition through a voice is what Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have asked for themselves, not the government.
Burney also explained why it's worth giving this a go, because everything we've done previously to try to close the gap hasn't worked.
Life expectancy, not on track. Indigenous babies born with healthy birth weights, not on track. Finishing year 12, not on track. Indigenous people engaged in jobs and training, not on track. If we needed any more evidence that more of the same isn't good enough, then this is it. We have to do things better, and I honestly believe The Voice can help.
The Minister also dispensed with the silly attack from the no campaigners that says this would be a Canberra voice, when it's actually entirely the opposite.
It will be chosen by local communities for local communities. The Voice will give independent advice to Parliament and the government on issues affecting Indigenous people and communities. This will lead to better outcomes because we know that listening to people from the grassroots levels lead to better outcomes.
Now, Burney outlined how she wants The Voice to concentrate on health, housing, education and employment issues. That's an attempt to blunt the scare campaigns that say The Voice would stick its nose into everything. The key point, though, is that The Voice is only advisory. So if it ever strays into, I don't know, interest rates or nuclear submarines, it'll be easily ignored. But Burney's big mistake was to provide a distraction from all of these sensible arguments. She played into the no campaign by attacking its tactics.
It is importing Trump-style politics to Australia. It is post-truth. And its aim is to polarise. My social media, as you can imagine, attracts trolls who accuse me of things like trying to set up an apartheid state.
Now, the no campaign has been deliberately divisive. They have used words like apartheid. They have been misleading. That's their tactic, to create a scare for undecided voters. But not everything from the yes case has been hunky-dory either. And the no proponents have used every criticism directed at them to fuel their arguments about division. So it was pretty silly of Burney to feed the beast. Soon enough, the headlines reflected the comparison to Trump rather than the other messages. And this will be portrayed as a personal attack on people thinking about voting no. And the no campaigners will claim to be unfairly maligned. Never mind that there are many, certainly not all, but there are many and prominent no campaigners who support Trump and would be flattered by the comparison. The point is that this is dumb politics by Burney and Labor. They need to deal with the concerns, expose the scare campaigns, attack the arguments, not the opponents. They need to reassure and win over undecided voters. Forget about the hardliners, you're never winning them over. This referendum won't succeed if Labor doesn't improve its advocacy. But don't forget, the coalition constantly accuses the yes advocates of being deceptive too.
I think Linda Burney today needs to be honest instead of trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the Australian public. They're not going to fall for it. They realise what's going on here.
So both sides are accusing the other of being misleading. But the yes case needs to hold itself to a higher standard and deal with the facts. They're the ones trying to deliver an historic reform. The no campaign only has to create doubts about it, undermine it. Peter Dutton's even trying to blame the Voice for cost of living pressures.
Frankly, over the course of the last 12 months, the Prime Minister's obsession with the Voice means that he's taken his eye off the ball when it comes to economic policy, and that's why you're paying more for your mortgage. It's why you're paying more for every element in your family and small business budget.
Now, you know what I think about Anthony Albanese and cost of living pressures. He's got to get focused on that and do more, especially on energy. But also, Anthony Albanese needs to step in and do more if this referendum is to succeed. He needs to reveal more detail about exactly what his Voice legislation would look like after the referendum wins, if it wins. We need to hear more from non-Indigenous people too, because this is about making the whole country better. And he needs to expose the central paradox of the coalition's position. The coalition says it's happy to legislate a voice. It says a legislative voice would be a good thing. But at the same time, it says a voice legislated under a new constitutional clause will be racially divisive and dangerous. It's an illogical position, and Labor has done little to expose it.